Hello everyone, I want to make this as short form as possible so we can cover everything. Since the last video was made, we have seen 4 new updates to version 50, and now that we have a final release granted to us, I want to cover as much of the changes as I possibly can. It is vital that you watch my last video as it is completely tied into this one. This video is made with the assumption you've seen my last video. I will structure the video in the following ways. First, I will cover changes to already existing content, and I will set my focus to one thing at a time as we move along, and I will include every change we see across all version 50 updates. Then, after that, I will cover all new content since version 50.1. This is because I covered everything we have to know about version 50.1 in my last video. After I cover the new content, I will then move into strategies, and then lastly, my thoughts on the update. Alright, that being said, let's get into some changes. First, we have the Baboon Hawks. In V50.2, they received an HP nerf going from 6 to 4 HP. In version 50.3, they received an attack damage nerf going from 30 to 20, while also getting their spawn curves adjusted. Next, we have mask Hornets or Butler bees. These pests got speed changes in V50.2 with their roaming speed being lowered and their chase speed being increased. In version 50.4, they had their attack damage increased to 40 in multiplayer and 20 in solo. They have a max movement speed of 10 meters a second in multiplayer and 5 meters a second in solo. However, we luckily did not get this finalized, as in V50.5, mask Hornet damage goes back to its original 10, with its speed changes being the following. Now chases at 5.4 meters a second in multiplayer and 4.25 meters a second in solo. Its roaming speed was lowered to 3 meters a second, and its moving speed decays quickly when it loses line of sight of the player. That's all the changes for Butler bees, so now onto the Butler itself. This guy has been very problematic all the way through. First off, he received a new behavior state called Berserk, where he will chase down players after being provoked instead of just standing there and taking hits. In V50.3, he has been updated to 2 HP for solo players, and the Berserk state makes him switch weapons extremely fast. He also has a high chance to stealth stab you, which is when you walk by him, he will just pull out a swift British move on you and slice you without getting angry. In V50.4, the Butler now takes 1 hit when stabbed with a knife, but takes 8 hits with anything else in multiplayer. That about wraps up the Butler changes, so now let's move on to his weapon changes, the knife. The knife attack speed gets reverted to 2.5, in version 50.4 the knife attack speed gets lowered to 2. However, the knife actually has a sell value now and can be sold for a fixed 35 credits. The knife's attack speed then gets increased in 50.5 and is set to its finalized 2.33. Next up we have Old Birds. The big crybabies have received quite a lot of changes. Starting with V50.2, Old Birds got a lot of missile nerfs. The cooldowns, speeds, and times all got a lot of nerfs. I'll let you read them yourself right here on the screen. Then in V50.3, the Old Bird's ability to target enemies gets severely nerfed, as was very much needed, and they cannot target enemies further than 30 units away, supposedly. The Old Bird also receives spawn curve adjustments. In Update 4, the only change that they received was to reduce screen shake when landing, and then it was all finalized with no changes in V50.5. Alright, next up is a few shotgun changes in V50.4, with the values first reduced from 45 to 25, and the ammo being changed from 30 to 15. This then gets changed in V50.5, with the shotgun itself being worth 60 and the ammo being worth 0. Ammo is now once again purely a tool. This is a good change, as many people had discussed. Hoarding the ammo to sell was very much problematic. We're closing in on some of the changes here, so now let's talk about jetpacks. Jetpacks went through a rough spot for a moment. In Update 4, they got their acceleration greatly decreased and they became basically useless. However, during this patch, the fall damage bug was finally fixed, which is very good. In version 50.5, Zeekers listened to what the community had to say about the jetpack changes and reverted the acceleration back to 10. The handling of the jetpack is completely different, whereas before it would be something similar to maybe the minicopter from Rust. Now it is pretty straightforward. Whenever you look in a direction, you fly that direction. It takes almost no time to accelerate into that direction, and the deceleration speed has been decreased. That is basically all of the jetpack changes. The jetpack, in my opinion, is now better. It is easier to maneuver through difficult terrains and through very tight spaces, but it has made it to where everybody who has their muscle memory built on how to use a jetpack has to learn it over again. Alright, moving on. Another minor yet large change as well. We have worm timings being adjusted. At minimum, the Earth Leviathan will take 1 second to erupt from the ground, meaning insta-worms are no more. Lastly, for non-map adjustments, we have the Jester. The Jester now does not start whining for longer when in single player and slightly longer when in multiplayer. It used to be 13 to 18 seconds for both, but now in multiplayer you get 13 to 21 seconds, an extra 3. Okay, I believe I've covered all changes so far. That does not include the new content, so let's see some of the adjustments made to maps. First off is Titan. Titan scrap amounts were first changed to 24 to 28, which was a nerf, but then in V50.3 we see it get increased to 28 to 31, which is fabulous, but still worse than V49. That is all the love we're going to see Titan get for this patch, so now let's move on to Artifice. Artifice scrap range was nerfed to 31 to 37 instead of 28 to 44, and then in V50.4 the map size multiplier increased to 2. It then also got some daytime spawn chance changes in V50.5. The stuff blurred out is new content I'll get to later. Rapid firing some map changes. Offense can spawn comedy mask and flasks. Assurance max scrap is now 15 instead of 16. Vow max scrap is now 13 instead of 12. And rend and dine size multipliers are now 1.8. Adamance gets a max scrap of 23 instead of 24, while also getting landmine and turret changes, so it's a little less hellish inside. Lastly, Embrion scrap changes is now 11 to 15 instead of 6 to 12. And a very important change that was brought to my attention by Royru is that the item cap has been increased finally. The item cap is now 401 instead of 80. You can bring a lot more items and save the game and then come back later to keep resuming and playing it. Okay, I've covered every change that there is to cover, so I can finally dip into new content. We've received quite a few new things in the past 4 updates. First off, spike traps. These are new interior hazards that will either slam down on a set interval or slam down once you walk under it. They have a red light on them to make them more identifiable and will immediately kill anybody who is caught under the spikes when it slams down. If an enemy is under a timed spike trap, it will not slam down in order to prevent the enemy from dying or being trapped. Here are the spawn values for the spike traps dependent on each map. There's an extremely in-depth video created by Bread that describes how these traps work, which I will link below. Definitely go check it out. Next up for new content, we have a new exterior enemy called tulip snakes. These are very small aerial entities that sit outside, like manticoils, except they actually do something. If one of these guys sees you, they will attempt to latch onto you and eventually try and carry you away. They can be removed by hitting them with a weapon and killing them in one shot, or they can be utilized for their flying capabilities. When you are being flown up into the air, you can control where you are going as if you're using a jetpack. However, you should be very careful, as they may not leave you alone once you enter the facility. There's a new type of death that can occur to a player because of these guys. Let me demonstrate. These little guys are immune to stuns and can be killed with one single hit. They have a power level of 0.5 and a max spawn of 12, which is unlikely considering their spawn weights, as displayed on screen right now. A max of 5 can latch onto a player at once, each counting as 3 extra pounds to your weight. They have the following behavior states: roaming, carrying, and flying. In the roaming state, they wander with similar AI to manticoils, looking for a player to latch onto. In the carrying state, the tulip snake will latch onto a player at spots and sit on its body for a while before attempting to fly away with it. In its flying state, it will flap its wings, lifting you off the ground for about 10 seconds, at a speed that increases depending on how many tulip snakes are on you. Eventually, they will let you down and they will leave you alone, but they can still latch onto you after they drop off of your body. Overall, these little guys are probably going to be more helpful than harmful, considering their flight can be controlled. You can carry 2-handers while being carried by the birds, so you can actually transfer 2-handers as if you're using a jetpack. Alright, that's all of the new content that we have so far, so I can finally discuss strategies. All of the old strategies I discussed in my last video are still relevant. Those discussed strategies are still the best way to deal with most new enemies. For tulip snakes, the strategy is to actually just embrace it. These guys will most of the time not prove you trouble, and if they do, find yourself a shovel and hit them off. That's basically it. These cute guys didn't do anything wrong, so don't go killing them for no reason. A new strategy for dealing with exterior enemies was also brought to my attention by Royru. Exterior enemies always have had a spawn limit even after death, similar to the Bracken. Once the Bracken is killed, no more Brackens can spawn for the rest of the day. The limit for giants is 3, so you can kill 3 giants and the rest will be dogs or worms that spawn throughout the rest of the night. Shotguns now properly work against exterior enemies, so a new developed strategy for Eclipse days is to kill anything outside that you can. Once all the dogs and giant spots are dead, you will basically only have worms to deal with. And now that worms are way easier to avoid, it's basically a free Eclipse day. As host, it takes 5 shots to kill a giant and 2 shots to kill a dog. As non-host, it takes only 3 shots to kill a giant and 1 shot to kill a dog. Version 50 went through a roller coaster of changes, but in the end it turned out to be a pretty decent patch. There's still imbalances and bugs that remain that I definitely wish could have been fixed, but I get that Zeekers is really eager to put out new content. Things like giant detection would have been nice to be fixed. As specifically phrased in the bugs Google document, giants have a detection meter for each player that is intended to go down when a player is out of view. However, it fails to lower that meter when there are no players in view. This results in the giants instantly aggroing onto players they previously chased or have seen moments ago. Anyways, yeah, the patch is out right now and you'll be forced to update your game, so expect a lot of casual content creators to be releasing their V50 videos soon, exploring the update. In my opinion, Zeekers is doing a decent job at listening to the community, but their priorities may not be set in order. I will say though, I don't blame them. They're managing this project all on their own after all. As I learn more and more about this version, I'll probably end up releasing individual guides for certain enemies or playstyles. Either way, till then, this video is basically all that I know and most others know. I hope you enjoyed. By the way, I do stream Lethal Company on Tuesdays and Thursdays while attempting to do high quota runs, so make sure you stop by. I hope you all have an amazing night. If you know anything that I missed in this video, please do leave it in the comments. See ya.